In prior releases, the investment blueprint rules were honored on all the expected places except on the column cells in the new investments timeline and in the hierarchy grid column cells. We have closed the gap, and now the rules are honored in all areas as expected. As a reminder, the hierarchy timeline layout is always read-only, and therefore it does not provide editing capabilities and thus will not interact with the investment business rules. I will demonstrate two blueprint rules use cases. For the first use case, I will have a blueprint rule defined that utilizes the disable selected attributes for editing. When the work status equals complete, the selected fields for Manager, Sponsor, PMO Manager, and the F&G Manager should not allow any editing. On the same blueprint, for the second use case, I have a defined business rule to disable all fields except the fields that I selected. When the work status equals on hold, I don't want the users to edit any of the fields except for the work status field. This will provide the user with the capability to resume the work on the investment. This demonstration is targeted for the new locations where the blueprint rules are now honored. For any investment type, if a blueprint has rules to disable editing, it will be honored on the timeline, on the investments workspaces, and in the hierarchy on the grid. So if we take a look at the project default blueprint, you can see that there are multiple rules defined. Let's focus on the two rules that we described earlier in the presentation. One rule is invoked when the work status is set to complete to disable only a few selected fields, and the other rule is invoked when the work status is set to on hold. We will also take a look at the ideas and custom investment types. It has one rule similar, which is for the work status set to on hold. So there we have it for ideas, and we also have it for the custom investment type of IT inventory, and you will see it also has the work status equals on hold. So when we navigate to a project grid, we know that the grid works in honoring the business rules, so we'll take a look at the timeline. Here in the timeline, you can see several projects have different work status. For an active work status, you can see that you can edit the column for manager or sponsor. However, if the investment is complete and you double click on the manager or sponsor field, it does not open up for editing. You can pick another field that's not honored by that rule, and you can do some editing. If the project is on hold, all the fields are disabled for editing. So even the date field here you cannot open and edit. The only field that's open for editing is the work status field. So we'll go into a hierarchy, and we can look at the ideas and custom investment types as well, because we have a hierarchy that has projects, ideas, and custom investment types where we can look at the rules honored there. So when we look at the hierarchy and we look at the timeline, we know this is read-only. So even if we were to go in here and try to edit any of the columns, regardless of whether there's a blueprint rule or not, we cannot edit them. They are disabled for editing always. However, if we go to the grid and we look at the different types of investments, and based on the rules that we have set on the blueprint, we can edit or not different things. So here's a project requested status, and you can go and edit a manager field. Here's a project that's complete. We cannot edit the manager field. And here is an idea on hold, and we set that so that we couldn't edit any field, not even the blueprint field. except for the work status field, which could be changed and then change the data. And so here is also IT inventory is a custom investment type. Let's change the status to on hold. Well, first it's active, so we can change the manager if we wanted to. But once I set it to on hold, then we know that we should not be able to edit the manager field. And now I'm trying to double click on the manager field and it's not editable. If I tried to change the blueprint, I can't change it. So I'm going to reset it back to active. And so therefore, depending on what business rules you have, you can see that they are consistently interacting with the blueprint rules across the application.